Thank you so much for coming on Talk of the Town. We appreciate it.
Happy to do it.
Let's talk about this new album from now on. This is your first full-length project since 2021.
Yes.
So let's talk about just what you're trying to say with the album, because first of all, fantastic.
Thank you. I mean, I think it's a lot of different things. I think I would have to like kind of go back in time if I really wanted to suss it out, because a lot of it was written for another artist, which was Orville Peck. I wrote a song that he ended up cutting in 2024. And so originally, I would say like 50% of the songs on the album were songs that I was like, I'm recording these to give to him and see if he wants to do something with them. And it never got that far, because I was like, at the time, I was not planning on doing my own music anymore. I was planning on producing. I had a publishing deal, still do, with a great company. And so, I was really focused on that. I felt like it was kind of like the post-COVID answer to what my role in the industry was. And so I guess, like a lot of these songs were written with the intent to give them to somebody else. So not that there wasn't any, thought put into it on my end, but, a lot of it was, how do I write this song where it's, personal enough, but also vague enough where if I was pitching it to somebody else, it would, be able to, resonate with them too. So,
well, I was going to ask, coming from where you're coming from with songwriting, because it does sound a little bit personal in it.
Yeah.
You can hear these stories of yourself. Are you just pulling from own moments, or what's that process look like to you, I guess?
Well, From Now On, which is the title track, I wrote that with a band called Bird Talker. And, I was originally, planning on giving it to Orville. And so, but when we wrote it, they're a married couple. I'm married. My little sister Noah had also just met somebody who she's still with today. And so I was kind of writing From Now On about, just that feeling of like, this is forever. You know what I mean? And so, and wrote it with people who definitely feel the exact same way. But then, again, that's such a, universal thing that I felt like, whether, I give it to Orville, I give it to Noah, I give it to whoever else wants to cut it, it was that. But, I think that was kind of the balance I found from writing for other people is, having personal, but also universal enough where somebody else could take it.
Yeah, for sure. And you recently had a son back in 2021.
Yeah.
And that obviously times out well with your last full-length project. I'm curious, I'm always wondering, because I've heard like you've never felt love like you feel as a parent.
Yeah.
How did that impact your songwriting? Do you feel like things differently, or are you able to tell things differently in your songs, I guess?
There's like a pre-child human that you're unable to relate to after having a kid. So like I almost feel like there's a shift in your head that happens where it's like I'm no longer even that guy. You know what I mean? So where I'm like, yeah, the kid didn't change me at all, but it's like I'm a new person after the kid. So it's and I think a lot of that has to do with like, I think the transition of like being single guy to married is very similar to being, childless and not having a family to having a kid. I think that those are like insanely transformative. Like I thought the biggest deal in my life up to that point was whenever I turned 16 and got a car.
Yeah.
and it's like, oh my God, I'm a new guy. I got this car. I can go and do anything I want. And then you get married and you have a kid and you're like, that every other change you've been through, whether it's like, I moved a lot as a kid, went to, different schools a lot as a kid, and none of that even remotely kind of touches what those, things turn you into.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and this is also self-produced, right?
Yeah.
I always think that's very cool, because you can really get into the intricacies of music. Why did you want to go through the process? Obviously, you do produce, but why did you want to make sure that your hands are in all of it, essentially?
Well, it was kind of if I knew I was making a record, I probably wouldn't have, and so I probably would have because again, like I was making, just like a little backstory on it. Like I was renting this studio from a friend of mine who moved out of the country, and he was like, I'm not really sure what I want to do with my studio. And I was like, I'll just rent it, use it for like, writing sessions, like, me producing for other people. And so, the version of From Now On that's on the album is the demo that I was planning on sending to Orville Peck. And so,
Cool.
I wasn't actually like making an album. I was making demos. Like Even Know This, I was planning on giving to somebody else. So it wasn't really until I decided to keep it that it kind of became what it is. But I was, none of these songs were, I think if I knew like, hey, I'm making an album, I think I probably would have been like, I want someone else to produce it because I don't want to latch onto things and, it be a 100% my thing. So I think I was in too deep by the point where it was, I realized I was making a piece of, collective work.
We're in too deep now. We're in too far in the process. Well, going into the music now a little bit more in depth. So From Now On, I take some notes, and one of my things was like the harmonies and like the building and the layering in there. I thought was beautiful and very intricate because I think there's a lot of, the process of doing that. Talk to me just about kind of your thought process with building this song a little bit more. Why you wanted to make sure it had that depth for Orville, I guess, or for yourself.
So, I mean, in depth, I mean, like I'm singing literally deeper because I was trying to mimic Orville Peck. Like I was kind of thinking like, I want him to hear it in a way where it's like, he hears his own voice on it. So that's the reason I'm singing deeper than I usually do, is because I was like, I want him to kind of almost hear himself on it. Now, it wasn't a great Orville Peck impression, but it was like, and then also like, I feel like a lot of the things with it were kind of an accident too, where it was like, I stacked up there are people who would come by and be like, hey, I want to check out the studio we're working at. And I'd be like, do you want to sing on this real quick? And so it was like, I probably have about like, I would say minimum 12 people stacked up on top. But it was like, I wasn't even planning on using all of them.
Yeah.
So it was like, just do it. Just record it and I'll throw it in somewhere. But then I ended up just putting it on top. Like even Tyler Ramsey, whenever he came to do that song, Looking Forward to the Past, I just was like, hey, do you want to throw this on there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's just funny. I feel like we've talked a lot about kind of Orville and all. I've just never interviewed somewhere where it was a demo originally turning into a whole project. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Atlantis, I feel like there's a lot of ethereal moments into this sound. And you've talked in it. There's a lot of metaphors. Talking about going to the lowest place you've ever been to, and I liked that metaphor. I thought that was very smart. Walk me through kind of what the songwriting looked like for you guys for this piece.
So I was with two writers from Australia, and then we wrote the part of it that's in English. And so, and then, man, I think it was probably before we wrote it. We wrote that in May of 2024. And I forget when it was, but it was probably a few months before that. I was driving, I think, to a friend's house of mine in Kentucky. And I listened to a lot of French music. And I was listening to one of my weird French playlists, and then it ended, and it went to this artist I'd never heard of named Clue. And I ended up just becoming obsessed. Like her album, I'll butcher the pronunciation, but Orage is one of my favorite records of all time. Reached out to her, or actually I think I even maybe just posted like, this is my favorite album of all time. And she reached out to me and was like, oh my God, people in America never really, it's rare for my music to go overseas to America. So cool. And then she happened to be in the States a few months later, and I asked her to come sing on Atlantis, but I also was like, there's not really a chorus. I was like, if you want to sing something in French, go for it. And now that's the chorus in French.
It's funny how those moments kind of happen. I mean, all you were doing was shouting out somebody that you liked, and now it's become like a whole piece of your own work.
Well, yeah, and me and her, we've worked on a lot of stuff together since then, and so that's been really cool. And I think like the record has so many people where it's like, Tyler, Bird Talker, people who are featuring on the record, like Tyler, Bird Talker, Noah, Miley, people like that. It's like, those are people I've always kind of known. Like Bird Talker, I went on tour with them in 2018, and Tyler, I've known for a while. And then people like Clue or Grizzfolk or Jordan Lindley, like those are people who are like, kind of came into my life at that time. So it's kind of like, there's like the old guard kind of people that I worked with or have known for a long time, and then people who only kind of came into the picture around that time.
Well, and I find that very cool, the fact that it is so collaborative with how many people are on the album for something that you weren't intending to be yours and that you ended up self-producing. I think that's just funny how that ends up working itself out. I am curious because you talked about Noah and Miley being on this, and I've always heard this with siblings because there's no one that can they harmonize the best, I think, because your voices are so similar.
Yeah.
Is that the case for you guys? Do you feel like you blend well when you're, or does it sound different compared to when you're harmonizing with other people?
I think it's harder to manage. You're you know with you know Sierra or Grizzfolk, I'm like way more comfortable being like, hey, do this, do that. With them, I'm not.
Really?
They're just mainly because one, they're great and they don't need my direction anyway. I'm not saying you know Grizzfolk or whoever does, but you know for my sisters, maybe if it was my brother, maybe I'd be more comfortable telling them what to do. But sisters, I'm always like, just do whatever you want to do. It's great. And it's going to be great no matter what. But I'm way less prone to like being like, hey, here's some like feedback. Maybe try doing this instead. Because one, they won't do it. And then two, they, you know, they know what they're doing. And I think that they know, especially Noah, like Noah knows what I'm going for. And so she kind of just naturally does it anyway. But also I'm a talker and a busybody, so I always want to even interfere, even if I don't really need to.
And this is your first song with Noah, right? That you've like professionally recorded.
Recorded, yeah.
Yeah. Is that what was that like? Was that cool? Just
It was-
like finally put like it officially.
Well, Noah had already cut a song of mine that she did with Fleet Foxes, and then Noah came to the studio. She happened to be in Nashville, and she just did it. But Miley flew her stuff to me from LA, so it was also a different experience.
Interesting. That's really cool. And talking about Know This, I feel like this is where you first are hit with a lot of that Americana sound that you really, which I thought was really great. And this is a very technical question.
Yeah.
Around the 3-minute mark, there is this moment where like the music, I think like pulls back in a way. I don't know what it is, but there was a moment that I literally got a chill. I think it's just how it stops like the string or the guitar, and then there's just a moment, a beat in there that really stuck with me. Are you very intentional when you're doing these kind of like little things, or is it just like, I just did it?
I will say I definitely wasn't with Know This. Know This was like I'm not a guitar player, and I did all the guitar for that song. And I think maybe I could be wrong, but there's like a moment where when everything very first drops out and you hear a little string scratch and it's kind of like, "Rrr." That was a total accident just because I'm not, but then I kind of liked it because I was like, it doesn't sound like a string scratch. And my engineer was like, yeah, it does. And I was like, well, keep it anyway, it's fine. But that, you know, I think like sometimes, especially with me, intentionality comes after, where I'm like, you know, I actually didn't mean to do that, but then it's, you know, maybe you've heard this from other people, but it's also like demoitis, where it's like, it could be the most insignificant thing, but you've heard it enough times where you're listening for it later. So if you took out that string scratch in that like down part whenever it's really quiet, no one else would know that it's there. But it's like, to me, who's listened to it a million times,
It's all I hear.
It's all I hear now. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just thought that was very cool.
Yeah.
And then there's a haunting quality in Another Year. And this one for me was when I was really hit with the storytelling. I was in it. I could picture everything. Is that hard to capture? Because I feel like, especially in Nashville, like that's the shtick, is being able to like recreate moments.
Well, it was like kind of loosely based on something real. I wrote that with Jordan Lindley, and me and him were both talking about, because you know I'm originally from Tennessee, but I lived in LA, and most of my family still lives out there. But we were kind of talking about like the depressingness of like traveling for Christmas a little bit, because it's like the airport is, you know, again, like one of my favorite movies also is Love Actually, and I feel like they did this really great job of like in the intro and in the ending of the film, where it's like talking about kind of this like feeling you get in airports and like, you know, like what everyone is going to do, you know what I mean? So, but we were talking about like, you know, mainly traveling around Christmas. And it's like, you know, we call it a Christmas song. It's really not, but it's about Christmas, and we talk about Christmas in it. And it's like, you know, he's not from Tennessee originally. So it's like we both had this kind of like thing of like, oh yeah, we travel back home or go see our family on Christmas. And it was just kind of this like, there's like they try to make it positive in the airport. It's like Christmas music's playing, garland and stuff everywhere. It's red and green and white and gold and stuff. But it's like, I'm still in the airport and I'm still like 6 hours and a Uber ride away from like seeing who I'm really going to go see.
I was wondering why because I got that message, because I also have to travel for Christmas.
Yeah.
And I do think, like, it sucks. It really
Yeah.
does. So I do like that you capture that, like, that feeling well of like, oh, I don't want to have to wait another year to do that reuniting with my family kind of thing.
Well, I had this one time period where I was in a long distance relationship with someone in LA. And the song isn't like written about that person, but like there was this kind of like, you know, I remember very well, like when I was like 20, being like, I'm flying back to LA, I'm going to go see my family. You know, my ex-girlfriend still lives in LA, and it's like trying to like time travel. Cause I think also like, I think probably one of the other songs on the record that like you wouldn't immediately put the two together, but I would say that like Another Year and Looking Forward to the Past are a bit of like a part one and part two to each other.
Sure.
And I think it's because I was looking back at that exact same time period in my life, because Looking Forward to the Past was written about a long distance relationship, and it was written about that kind of time period. And it's like, I think that you look back, you know, on things and see them so much more like clearly, and like see like, oh, I did something dumb, or I was 22 and everyone's dumb at 22. And so I think that like in a weird way, like Another Year and Looking Forward to the Past are sort of like companion songs on the album in like a weird way, just mainly because they're both written about that same kind of like 2016, 2017 like time period.
That's interesting. And then here in the middle, I really could feel that conversation. Why did you want Sierra to be a part of this?
Here in the Middle is another one that like I think like from now on and Here in the Middle were like the two I was mainly like, if there are two songs on the album that were like directly written where I was like, I want Orville Peck to cut this. It's like I had it in my head that Here in the Middle would be him and maybe Noah, and where I'm doing the Orville parts, and Sierra would be doing what I kind of intended Noah and Orville to be doing. So, but then Sierra, and then also actually weirdly enough, the reason I met Sierra and her bandmates in O.C. Elliott was they were at the same festival as Orville Peck, and they heard the song, and they were like, "Oh, who wrote that?" And they were like, "Oh, Braison Cyrus and Ben Kramer from Old Sea Brigade." And they were like, "Oh my God, we know both of those guys, or we know Old Sea Brigade." And so they reached out to me. We became kind of fast friends, and then I was like, "I've kind of got this thing if you want to do it." And then, you know, I always feel weird talking about the record and being like, so much of it was like inspired by how much I wanted to continue writing for Orville. But it's like, really at the end of the day, like one of the biggest like impacts and the only reason it exists is because I was really planning on that being, you know, the fate of a lot of these songs on it. So especially Here in the Middle.
Yeah, it's just very funny. Like all of this just aligns very well for you, which I really like. And then As Long as You Stay, this is with Noah. There was a line that talked about the broken trophy might, but it's the trophy might be broken, but it's golden still. I liked that line a lot.
Thank you. And you know what's funny? I went over to Trent Dabb's house, another amazing writer, and that was the only line he had for the song. He had like kind of like the chorus idea, and then he had that. And I will say that was at the time a line I did not like. And I always on like lyric sheets, you know, I always comp my own vocals. And whenever I would sing it, I would always kind of highlight that area and be like, I'm going to change that eventually. And then I like kind of just started like liking it more and more, and it was years later. Like I think that's probably the oldest song on the whole album is As Long as You'll Stay. I think I probably wrote that with Trent Dabbs in 2022. But but that was always a line where I was like, I'm going to change that. Now, if this is going to be my song, I'm going to change it. But then I started just kind of being like, you know what? No, this is the way it's been, and I don't need to start changing things. But also, I do now. It's like, you know, I enjoy singing it because I think, again, like the kind of retroactive intentionality is like, oh, actually, this was meant to be this way.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just about to point that out. I was like, the retroactive intentionality is very funny. One More Life, I also thought was great. And really, I always say this, but I'm like, I truly did really enjoy the whole project. And you mentioned looking forward to the past, but I wanted to skip down to Bridge Between Two Towns.
Yeah.
I just want to I want to hear more about this song. I just think it was really interesting.
So that is the newest song. So As Long As You'll Stay is like the oldest. I wrote Bridge Between Two Towns last year because I produced my dad's record that's coming out this year. And I wrote most of the songs for it. And Bridge Between Two Towns originally started actually at a totally different verse, kind of a whole different vibe. And believe it or not, that was actually written, intended for him.
Oh.
I was originally going to give the lyrics were different, and the structure of it was a lot different, but the chorus was basically the same. And I don't know why. I don't remember if he was like, because the demo was always very like folky, jammy, kind of the way it ended up turning out. But I don't remember if it was him who was like, I don't know if I can sing it that way. I don't know if this is like my song, or I don't know if I was like, I'm going to keep this. I'm not going to give it to my dad. But it was written for that. And so that was like the newest one. And I think actually originally my publisher heard it and was like, we cannot wait to pitch this to people. And I was like, okay, you know, that's fine. And then I listened to it more and more and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to give it to somebody else. And then I think my publisher actually hit me up and was like, hey, somebody wants to cut it. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's too bad. Because
that person is me.
yeah, I already took dibs on it. Yeah. So sorry.
That's awesome. And just two more questions is we are at the studio here in Berry Hill. Why did you want to meet here? What is there attachment to this spot, or is you just like it?
He mixed the whole album. Yeah. So, and I've actually never been to his studio. He gave me the tour right before he gave you guys the tour. Okay. So I've known Preston for a while, almost 2 years now, because originally, this is so embarrassing, but like Preston, who runs Tracehorse, I needed help setting up like a headphone box for recording vocals, and I could not figure it out. And it like wouldn't work. I would plug it in everywhere, and he finally came over and was like, yeah, dude, you just plug it in here and it turns right on. I was like, okay, cool, thank you. And then I was like, do you want to mix the whole album whenever it's done, by the way? And then I kept changing things, and you know, like also another huge shout out just in like the production aspect, because as much credit as I you know, get and gladly take for producing the record, I couldn't have done it without my engineer, Ryan Rasmussen. He's like the young, like hotshot kind of engineer guy. He's like new to Nashville relatively. He's only, you know, even now, only 24 and like insanely gifted. And it's like, really, I couldn't have made the entire thing without him. And then also Preston made everything come together on the master side. And he did it here, so.
And then you mentioned that you weren't intending on releasing a project and kind of going to step back and do more of the producing, songwriting. Now that this is out, is there a plan to continue doing more, or do you want to get back to what you originally intended?
I'm going to start releasing the next album probably in the fall. So, I've been busy working on it because I think I totally reevaluated my, you know, priorities for what I want to do for work. And I think I'm like, I've got, you know, a long time to be like, you know, I'm going to write for other people. I'm going to produce for other people. I think I only got a few, maybe 10 years left of like, I want to record my music. I want to tour. I want to do this. I want to do that. I think I've only got like a very, you know, a window of time. And I think I've like given myself like a cutoff for that. And, you know, because I'm a bit of a homebody. And so I definitely still write for other people. I definitely still produce for other people, and I love it. But I think my priority of like, this is what I want to do right now has like totally shifted you know, completely 180 back to what I was doing in 2018. So
honestly, I love it. I'm glad. I think this is going to be great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for the time. I
awesome.
appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, man. Yeah. It was great.